Welcome to the Seattle Investors Club podcast with Julie Clark and Joe Bauer, where we share the nuts and bolts of real estate investing from our 20-plus years in the industry. Sit back, relax, listen, and immediately take action. Are you ready? Here we go.
Welcome to the Nuts and Bolts of Real Estate podcast. My name is Joe Bauer, and I'm here with my co-host, Julie Clark. Julie, how you doing today?
All good in the hood, Joe. It is, what are we today? August, 10th? My girls, twin girls, this is totally crazy to me, just turned 13. It's very bittersweet. Yeah, very, very bittersweet. And one thing that's kind of cool, I haven't told you yet, Joe, Addison, whose computer screen or background I'm using today, as you can all see, she just got her first job. She got her first job. It's a volunteer job. It's a volunteer job. She totally went after it herself, and she is basically volunteering at ATS, Altogether Skate Park, which is below Evo here in Seattle. It's like the biggest indoor, probably, skate park in the Seattle area, and they have welcomed in her. It's such a great environment, and it's like completely legit. So I have looking like this today because I had to get up and race over there and drop her off at her job before we kicked this off this morning.
Nice.
That's Addison. Yeah, super. I'm very stoked for her because they're going to take her under her wing. You know, she's going to be able to elevate her skateboard game and all that jazz. So the other one, Katie, is still sleeping in. So working on that one. Yeah, so that's what I'm up to. I'm in high speed mode already today. Where are you at? I love wherever you're at. Those are some cool. Whatever those are, light fixture balls, up there.
Yeah. Over in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And I'm actually in the Whole Foods, which they just bought out this other local grocery store in the area. But it makes my life great because Whole Foods internet is smoking fast. And I can just hang out here all day and eat great food and do podcasts.
Nice stuff. Where are you guys headed this fall?
Actually, we're headed back to Seattle in a couple of weeks. We've got some family things that have come up that require us to be back there.
Nice. Well, shout out, guys, if you guys have not been following what's up with Joe with the Get Better project and all the stuff going on in his life, give us the big news about your mom. Whoa.
Oh my gosh. Can you believe? I can't believe that. So it's like, thanks for bringing that up. My mom, who is 68 years old, has been doing our workouts for the last couple of years, and she made it to the CrossFit Games. So if anybody is not familiar with CrossFit, it is basically a test of pretty much anything they can throw at you. Fitness wise, and she made it to the CrossFit Games in the 65 plus category, and we thought it was super cool, super fun. Let's go have a good time, and she won. So she is now crowned the fittest 65 plus year old in the world, as according to CrossFit. So we're just mind blown. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, I just got the little goosies, as J-Lo would say. That's pretty freaking awesome, right? It's funny. All this time, you're doing this for so long, and I've been seeing you work out with your mom and your sister and everybody for years. That is insane. So Patty Bauer, right?
Yeah.
Patty Bauer in the house. This one's for you, Patty. Awesome job. We are super proud of you. Super awesome. You guys check it out. Where can they look that up, or where can they see more information so everybody can go inspire their own families?
Yeah, I've been pushing her to post more on Instagram. So Patty Bauer CF on Instagram is her handle, and that's spelled Bauer. So check her out. If you guys, are interested in how she did it, send her a message. She's super cool. So awesome stuff.
I'm trying to find like some cool transition to introduce our Obligo guest. And I was going to say, boy, she's probably said goodbye to a bunch of unwanted weight and stress by all her workouts. Here's my stupid transition, everybody. And today we're going to say goodbye to security deposits. How about that? Does that work for you guys? Hey,
perfect.
We got Casey Winter and Keegan Here we go. Saint Ange. Did I do it? From Obligo. Obligo, as these guys just told me, is like the word obligation, right? Obligo. This is probably going to be one of our podcast questions. How'd you guys come up with that name and why? That was kind of an easy one to understand right there. So today, everybody, for all you landlords, tenants, and whatever else it seems like Obligo might be good for beyond just rentals. That's my first thing. Man, this might apply to other stuff. Obligo is a platform that allows, I'll let you guys explain it, but is another way of getting security for security deposits, I guess, with a billing authorization instead of a transfer of cash. And so today we're going to talk about that and introduce it to you guys so you are aware of this awesome service. And we can get to know how you can all use it yourself as your landlords. Our audience here is a bunch of landlords and, investors and things like that. So welcome, guys.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Joe. Really nice to meet you guys. And thanks for having us on the podcast today. Super excited.
Awesome stuff. Well, let's jump into it. We're going to let Joe always kicks off with the first question here, since we took up a bunch of time celebrating ourselves this morning. We're going to jump straight into it. Go for it, Joseph.
Yeah, we'll start off with Casey, and if Keegan wants to jump in here as well. We love to get to know our guests deeper and figure out how you've gotten to where you are in your life today. So we'd love to know where you grew up, how you grew up, and how that led to the business that you guys are running right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am half American, half British. My family's home state is New York, but I actually grew up in Hong Kong, of all places, to give you the short story. And after high school, I ended up at school in the Bay Area. So naturally, when I graduated, I got into tech because that's what a lot of people do in the Bay Area. And about 12 years ago, I started working for a company that was the first company to allow renters to pay rent online. What a crazy idea. Now everybody pays their rent online. Back then, it was a straight paper check business. So that is my background, taking an inefficient process with receivables and payables in the property management space and making it more efficient for everybody involved. Now you can pay all your bills online, including your rents. And then a few years ago, I met the founders of Obligo. And with my background, I instantly understood what they were building. It made a ton of sense to me. And I was super excited to join the team. And I've been here for 3 years now, and we've hired some great people, including Keegan. And we are on that path. We are doing high growth. We've raised money, and it's been an adventure, and we're enjoying the ride.
Awesome. So are you surprised that are there competitors, or are you surprised that this is only coming up now, or how long has it been? A couple years, you say, that Obligo has been around? Because we've been until the last.
Yeah. It's a fair point. Yeah. I mean, we went to market about 3 years ago, and we started in New York, and we only operated in New York for about a year and a half. And then our go national year was 2020 of all years. You'll never forget that. Right. But we are technically a security deposit alternative by definition. And there are other deposit alternative products in the market. In fact, there have been products in the market for, I'd say, almost 25 years. But they never really made much of an impact. Those products are insurance products that use a surety bond structure, and they're originally designed for renters who could not afford to pay a deposit, and they would be willing to pay a high premium for an insurance alternative. So that is not what we do. We're the only product in the market that uses a credit-based model, and that is very much by design. We wanted to create a product that was for all renters that could afford the deposit, but they'd rather just hold on to their cash. And I'm sure we'll get into the other details. But it's no secret that renters don't like to hand over deposit money when they move in. They're not going to see it again until months after they move out. What was funny was we learned that landlords aren't big fans of deposits either. And that is due to essentially liability. holding people's cash has become a liability because a lot of legislation is being passed at the state level that dictates to landlords what they have to do with this money. They're actually not allowed to make interest on it themselves most of the time. If there is interest, it goes back to the renter. And then these windows to return the deposit after the move out keep getting shorter and shorter, and it's becoming more and more difficult for landlords to comply. So at the end of the day, security deposits are very important. What we think is outdated and inefficient is holding people's cash and tying up their funds. In the United States alone, it's estimated there's about $45 billion sitting in escrow accounts, collecting dust, working for nobody.
Right. Right. So it's just like money sitting there, especially if inflation starts coming in and all this other stuff. Right. But typically I would think the security deposits are not, I guess for renters, huge amounts of money these days with how high rents are. Right. And being able to collect, the city of Seattle is absolutely nuts and nutty, very tenant friendly, not friendly to the landlords at all. It's so confusing. It's almost hard to manage your own properties anymore. So something like this probably is something absolutely everybody's going to want to be interested in knowing about. So was Obligo built for the renters then, or was it meant to solve a problem for renters, or was it always kind of a two-sided type of approach?
It was always a two-sided approach. The way we view it is that it's a win-win-win, right? Certainly it's a win for the renter. They get to keep their hard-earned cash in their pocket. It's a win for the landlord from an operational perspective, because now they don't have this liability of taking cash and storing cash and returning cash at the end of the lease. And then the third win is for the marketing, the leasing team. You can now market your properties as deposit-free to make them stand out from your competitors across the street. So right. Any early adopters are going to have that advantage before it just becomes something that's offered at every property there is.
Right. Is it, can you operate in every state, or are there some state laws that don't allow this?
We can operate in every state. What's interesting is when you look at deposit law, by definition, a security deposit means cash is held. So if you're not holding somebody's cash, it's not technically a security deposit anymore, is it? So that allows us to freely work in all 50 states. And we're already live with partners in, I'd say, about 35 states now.
Interesting. So do they actually have to change the language in their lease to... We
do advise them to represent this use case in their lease by adding a small kind of insert or rider, if you will, just because you don't want there to be a lease that says you're holding cash when in fact you're not, because if you do end up in court, that paperwork is going to trump anything else that you might be claiming for, because you signed a lease that said you took a deposit when in fact you did not take any cash at all.
So is this also something that can be used to collect damage? I've been a landlord for a long time, and sometimes there are fees beyond, there's damage to a unit beyond what a security deposit would cover. Can Obligo be used to collect that kind of stuff?
Currently not. I mean, when the renter moves in, you're pre-agreeing to an amount of what that deposit amount is. So at the end of the lease, if there's a balance due, Obligo guarantees that pre-agreed amount. Anything beyond that currently, just like now, you would have to pursue your former renter. However, it is something we're looking at just because of the nature of the relationship we have with the renter, and because we're very good at recovering funds from the renter already. So it is certainly something we are looking into offering in the future to at least assist landlords to collect these additional amounts before they might out it to a third-party collection agency where traditionally you pay a big split of the recovered funds.
Gotcha. That's awesome. What about, can a disgruntled tenant put a stop to the billing authorization. So we'll back it up in a minute here, and we'll go through what it really is, it's a billing authorization and exactly what that means. But can a disgruntled tenant, like you'd think somebody put a stop payment on a check or something, can they put a stop to a billing authorization? And is that why you guarantee it?
Yeah. So we're here because we're assuming the risk, right? They can have an empty bank account. Just so you know, and maybe we should back up a little bit, because I think answering this question will make more sense if we kind of go through the mechanics.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
The inspiration and the easiest way to kind of introduce how we've modeled this is that we actually did our research. So when we came into the market, we saw that there are all these surety bond companies. We knew how they operated. We knew they were very expensive. We knew that they recovered very little of the funds they paid out in claims. So we immediately dismissed that as an option. We looked to another industry that had a cash deposit problem and solved it. And this was actually done 40 or 50 years ago. So if you look at the hospitality industry, car rentals, hotels, a lot of people don't know this because we're generations beyond, but you used to have to pay a cash deposit when you checked into a hotel or rented a car. And they would put that cash in a safe behind the desk. And when you checked out, you would get that money back as long as you didn't hit the minibar or cause any damage or, what have you. They implemented a new system to go completely cash free with their deposits. And they did this with two things. One, cards became mainstream. They recognized that the renters or the guests were walking into the hotel with either a debit card or a credit card with a Visa logo or a MasterCard logo on it. And there was a new technology available called a pre-authorization. So the first thing you do when you check into a hotel is provide a deposit. We all know the drill. Please give me your credit card and your ID. They take that card, they swipe it, they hand it back to you. They give you a piece of paper to sign. That piece of paper, which none of us have ever read, is a pre-authorization to charge that card up to a pre-agreed amount if they need to. So if you check out of that hotel and you have a balance because of the mini bar or whatever, they're just going to charge that card. The bank is going to pay the hotel immediately. And then the bank is going to do their job and collect back from their cardholder. Very simple, very efficient. It's so successful. Every hotel car rental agency around the world has adopted it. And it's something we're all programmed and we know how it works. So that was our inspiration. We said, wow, this is super efficient. How can we make this work for long-term rentals? And there lied the obstacle. Because the pre-authorization technology, you can only put a pre-auth, like hold of 200, whatever the amount is on somebody's card for a limited amount of time. Typically, that's 10 or 14 days. So you certainly cannot do it for a 1 year or 2 year or 3 year lease. And that's why no one's done it before in our industry. So we were able to overcome that obstacle because of new technology. One was open banking. And we can kind of dig into open banking later on, but open banking allows us to instantly connect and verify somebody's bank account. So what Obligo is doing is we're giving the renter the option to pre-authorize their bank accounts for any open balance up to a pre-agreed amount, just like at a hotel, when they move out with that open balance. Now, because a pre-auth on a bank account is not as secure as putting a hold on somebody's credit card or debit card, that's why Obligo exists. We're here to take that risk. So Obligo is a credit facility. When the renter connects their bank account, we are qualifying them in split seconds based on their bank account data for a new line of credit just for their deposits. And we have to charge for the service because you know what? We're not going to win. We're not going to collect back 100% of the time. We're going to recover the funds from the renter. We always pay the landlord first. The landlord is not participating in any risk whatsoever. So the landlord gets paid first. Then Obligo, just as the bank does in the traditional pre-auth model, is going to do our job and collect back from our member. And we treat it just like a hotel does. If there's a charge against their credit line, they get a bill. If you go to a hotel and you check out and you have a balance, you actually go to the desk and print out your statement or whatever, they say the same thing to you every time. They say, do you want to use your payment method on file, or do you want to provide another form of payment? So we treat it the same way. They get an email with their itemized charge. If they think it's unreasonable, we give them an extra 30 days to go dispute it with their landlord directly. And then they get to configure their repayment to Obligo. And you know what? If they need to do it in installments, we don't even charge interest. So they configure their repayments. Non-responsive renters who don't, let's say within 30 days, click and choose their repayment plan, then we use their preferred payment on file. We send them an email, let them know that we're going to do 4 installments starting on XYZ dates. So that's how we handle it. We just want to create a consumer-friendly experience and mimic an experience that they're used to, which is hotels and car rentals.
So you're taking part of the job responsibilities off the landlords or the property management company to collect these balances, I guess, because you are automatically paying the landlord, right? And you're taking on that risk. So there's administratively a break there as well, right? And as well as there's a guaranteed payment to a landlord that works with Obligo, right? I mean, there's no guarantee. What happens if Obligo, you're given your 30 days, or what if somebody doesn't pay Obligo and it results in you just don't get paid? Is there some sort of rate back to the landlord?
No, I mean, the landlord's not participating in any risk. The landlord essentially has a secured line of credit for each renter that qualified for Obligo. If we are ultimately unable to collect back, that's a write-off for us. We're going to have some write-offs. That's why we have to charge for the service. But yeah, there's no risk for the landlord. The landlord essentially has the same deposit without the burden of actually storing the cash. When they need the money, they press the button and the money comes out. And this is different than the traditional surety bond model that's been around for so long, because those products are insurance. By definition, there is a claim, and by definition of claim means that there is going to be a third party scrutinizing the money that you want to get out of that bond. So the landlord essentially loses their ultimate discretion. They maintain that discretion with Obligo because we are a credit product and we are not scrutinizing when they need to make a charge against that billing authorization amount.
Is there any protection for the tenant on a bad actor landlord making a bad charge?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we noticed with the bond products is that because it's insurance, there's a lot of restrictions. And part of those bond agreements that renters don't read is that they're waiving their rights to go to courts and dispute it. The insurance company becomes the arbitrator. And there's a little bit of conflict of interest when you kind of analyze that. With us, we just refer our terms back to the lease. The lease is still the controlling document on what you can deduct from a security deposit or charge against our deposit alternative, the billing authorization. So we're not here to take sides between the renter and the landlord. How could we? We're not there. We don't know if there's a hole in that wall or not. If the renter wants to dispute, that's when we give them the option to defer their first payment so they can go through the same legal channels that are already available in their state, which, typically that process is you call your landlord first. And if you can't negotiate, then you can take them to small claims court. That doesn't change for the renter. They maintain their legal rights that they have.
I don't know why I feel like you guys are taking on a huge amount of risk. Because I come from property management background and, worked 20 years in, property management on big apartment buildings and stuff. And I feel like my first inclination is to say, okay, so you're going to pay the landlord right away. There could be a dispute on, I guess I'm the security deposit. People are collecting security deposit or what word are we using instead of security deposit? Let's train everybody.
Billing authorization. Well, for us, it's a billing authorization. Yes. It's our word for a pre-authorization. So it's a pre-authorization on a bank account. We've coined the term billing authorization.
Is that what you're calling it in the leases then? A billing authorization?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So you're automatically paying these billing authorizations to the landlords, and the billing authorizations are, I'm just talking out loud like I'm looking to use you or something. And, I'm a landlord and I need to bill back the tenant and eat up some of that billing authorization for cleaning fees or whatever is part of this billing authorization. I don't know if is it limited to certain line items like, are there limitations on what the billing authorization can be used to collect, right? So, for example, call it a cleaning fee. Well, you can't bill for something else if you called it a cleaning fee, right? You got to collect it as a cleaning fee. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I hear you. And again, it's really down to your lease, right? As the landlord, your lease is defining what you can deduct from a deposit, and that carries over to what you can charge from a billing authorization.
Got it.
Yeah, the other thing is, the renter's qualifying for this. As I said earlier, this is not a bond product. This is not a mechanism for a very risky renter to, buy a bond because they can't afford the deposit and get into the property. They are qualifying for a line of credits equal to whatever deposit amounts you want. So certainly that helps us, not take on risk. There's super high risk where we know we probably wouldn't be able to collect back from somebody. So
is it a ding on their credit? They get a credit ding?
Yeah. So we don't currently report credit bureaus. That's something in our pipeline. That's a highly regulated, thing to do, reporting to credit bureaus. So we're doing our research on the legal side because you need to be squeaky clean when you do that. But that's not our intention to ding people's credits. We just want to create a transparent, system. The other thing we do is we underwrite the landlords before we work with them. So we ask them questions about their deduction history because we know what the norms are. For instance, in our home city of New York, deposits are rarely utilized. These are apartments, less than 10% of the deposits held end up being deducted. Most of the time, it's just money going back and forth. That's very low risk. We know that the landlord is honest. We know that these are good renters. But if we meet a landlord in a market where we know what the norm is, and they tell us up front that they're keeping 70% of the deposits they take, then that's a red flag, right? So either these are really bad tenants or the landlord is just dishonest. We don't want to work with landlords, so to speak. Right. That's not our market segments. If those are your numbers, that's exactly why bonds were invented. And we actually recommend that they go use a bond product.
Do you have tenants that go to small claims court to try and, deal with this?
Yeah. And within the 3 years, I've heard nothing that anything regarding our products ever went to court. But it could. I mean, it probably will eventually, but not today.
Wow. This is good stuff here. So,
hey guys, it's Julie here with a quick break from the show to discuss an opportunity some of you may have interest in, which is to work more closely with me. On almost a daily basis, I get calls from investors and brokers, both new and experienced, asking me for guidance or advice. I love helping you guys out, and it keeps me on my toes too. So with that said, I wanted to let you know that I have a private broker coaching community called the VIP Education Community. And the best part is that it's 100% free. That's right, it's free to join. So whether you're a traditional broker or a broker investor, my VIP education community offers personalized one-on-one coaching from not just me, but also from my experienced broker friends with expertise in all disciplines of real estate and real estate investing. We'll teach and share our modern marketing strategies, our tech and lead generation resources, plus teach you how to identify or offer up opportunities for yourself or for your clients using techniques such as seller financing, lease options, land entitlement deals, burr investing, flipping, multifamily or commercial coaching, whatever you like. we've got it all covered for you. The future of real estate is changing fast, and to stay in the game, it's time to learn about all the options you can offer your buyer and seller clients, as well as, if you want, learn how to use those skills to grow your own real estate portfolio. If you'd like more details about joining my VIP education community, reach out to me at julie@seattleinvestorsclub.com or text me at 206-910-2985 or just send me a Facebook message. My new favorite phrase is community equals confidence. So let's navigate the future of real estate together. Now, back to the show.
Do you have, do you work with, what's the smallest size landlord? Or are you only working with property management companies? Are you, working with small portfolios of private landlords? What's the scoop there?
Yeah, I mean, we've learned a lot on this journey. There's a lot of market segmentation in the industry. We, obviously started in New York, big rents, big deposits. And then as we started going, across the country, we started working with different segments, single family homes, for example. That was not a segment that was immediately front of mind when we created the products. But what we learned is that that's obviously a growing industry, especially with the pandemic, a lot of people moving out of the cities, going into single family homes. And what we learned about single family homes is that they charge real deposits. They don't reduce deposits with single family homes. So it makes a lot of sense for our product because there is such a high deposit required. On the multifamily side, which is obviously our bread and butter, there are certain markets, especially in the South, where deposits have become inconsequential. They're asking for like $200 or $300, which is not hard for renters to come up with that. But usually when you talk to a multifamily management company and you ask them, why is the deposit so low? Why did you abandon the 1 month equivalent? And they usually always tell you to be competitive. These markets have a lot of construction. There's a lot of vacancy. There's high competition. So one company started trying to use the advantage of a reduced deposit, and then everybody had to follow suit. And the downside of that is you usually see a lot of bad debt at the end because the deposits they're holding are not covering the balances, the open balances that they're seeing at move out. So we actually help them solve that problem, because what we tell them is, stop with this $200, $300 deposit nonsense. Start asking for a real deposit. But if you use this technology, you can now market your property as a $0 deposit property instead of a $200 deposit property, but you're going to have real protection when it comes to move out. So yeah, a lot of segmentation. We work with some, big national multifamily guys. We're talking to a lot of them, and we work with pretty much any management company with at least 200 units or 200 doors at the moment. And the only reason we limit it is just because when you sign up with us, we need to set you up, we need to train you, and right. We have so much inbound traffic on our website from small landlords, and we really want to serve them. So one of our initiatives is to build a self-onboarding platform. Yeah. So that's something, just a teaser, but that's coming for us, which is going to allow any small landlord running their own operation to utilize this technology and have the same advantages that the big companies get.
Super cool. Do you find that you're working with Class A, maybe Class B apartments? You're not, I can think of people here that could essentially qualify for your platform on size of units, however many units they have, but they might be like Class C type buildings, right?
Yeah. For us, it's usually, obviously Class A, Class B, I'd say C and up, maybe C minus and up. The thing with us is you need to have a bank account, right? So if it's a property for, where traditionally renters don't have bank accounts, which I think is about 10% of the population currently, it just won't work because that's how we're doing the pre-authorization. It's on your bank account. So you do need to have a bank account.
Sounds like you guys need to hook up with like Invitation Homes or American Homes for Rent.
I would love to talk to Invitation Homes. We work with their old kind of parent company, which I think sold their shares, but Blackstone was one of our first customers in New York. They're the biggest landlord in New York. But yeah, I haven't spoken to Invitation Homes, but I would love to. I've been trying to crack that nut.
I have a contact over there. When we're off here, I'm happy to make an introduction for you.
Julie, I would appreciate that so much. Thank you.
You got it. You got it. Just ask Julie, guys. My network's huge. Okay, so been around a long time. I know it's that Danish, right? Yeah. 50.
Yes.
Cool stuff. Let me see what else I have on my list. I was going to ask you, like, is there any type of reporting, transparent reporting between the parties?
Yeah, we're cloud-based and we have automated push notifications. So unlimited user accounts for any of our partners. Each user can pick and choose automated emails they get for certain activity, or they can just log into our cloud-based platform and they can see the data. But, I have to tell you that we've spent a lot of time and elbow grease building automated integrations with the property management softwares that serve the industry. So I think Yardi was our first one. We've now done MRI. We've done Entrada. I think one site is in our Periscope. And now we're looking to do it with some of the smaller companies, which, we haven't signed yet. So I'm not going to mention their names. But the whole idea is that you never have to log into Obligo. You've got a system in place. It's working just fine. This is one piece that's going to add value to your move-in flow, in addition to your move-out flow. And by the way, I haven't told you guys this yet, but we're not a one-trick pony. We recognize that not every renter wants to use the service, but there's still a pain point when you take a cash deposit. Many management companies still require a certified paper check, be in the form of a money order or a cashier's check from your bank for those pre-move-in payments, right? The deposit, the first month's rent. They don't want any risk of that bouncing after they've given you access to the property because it's going to take them months to evict you. So our platform is built in a very holistic way. It's one workflow for every renter. Within that workflow, they have the choice to qualify to go deposit free or pay a traditional deposit. If they choose the traditional routes, we process that payment free of charge and we guarantee the funds. So it's equivalent to a cashier's check or a money order. Now, when that renter who paid the traditional deposit, when they eventually move out, we're going to send them an email and say, how would you like to get your deposit back? Something we learned is that it doesn't matter how big your company is in this industry, virtually everybody at move out to return the deposit is cutting paper checks and mailing it to forwarding addresses that they probably don't even have half the time.
Yeah.
And if you talk to those accounting operations people, they're going to tell you it's the bane of their existence. Cutting checks, the checks come back. They've got a drawer full of return checks. They have no way of getting it back to the renter. They might have to let the state know that they've got this cash for somebody, but they don't know how to return it to them. So we email them and we support them. We say, here, connect your bank account, verify your ID immediately online to prevent fraud. So we're not sending the money to the wrong place. And then we just send it directly to their bank account and eliminate that additional paper process that you're having with checks. And I mean, think about it. You think about the companies that have 100,000 units in 30 different states, and they have to comply with 30 different sets of laws. And the windows keep getting shorter. In New York, it's 14 days now. I think in Arizona, it's 14 days to return the deposit. So not only are we, saving, I'd say about 3 hours per deposit as far as admin overhead, but we're helping them comply so they're not taking on liability and returning these deposits late.
I think that admin overhead thing is huge. It's like it could be a job, that could be that, you think about back in my day, a long time ago, I tried to start my own startup. Stupidest name on the planet. It was called sharedbusinessspace.com. That's because sharedofficespace.com was taken. It actually it went really well for a few years, but I'm not a tech person and I didn't go try and get any money or anything like that. But I'll tell you, the interesting part was I was trying to, have people that had extra office space, share that office space. But the idea was with a complementary business. The idea wasn't that. The idea was that they would be able to share business referrals more so than the break on the rent, right? And that would be a complementary business. It wasn't just shared office space. The intent was pair up with a business that's complementary to yours so you can share, like an architect and an engineer or a, CPA and a whatever, lawyer or financial something or whatever. But I think you guys like that in a way that yes, the deposit thing is interesting for the landlords, but the salary, the payroll savings, I'd be interested to see you guys do a little white paper study on the amount of payroll. Not that we want to put people out of jobs, but maybe there's a better allocation of.
No, it's for them to focus on what they should be doing, right? A lot of times in multifamily, it's the property managers that are tasked with this. Sometimes they centralize it, but usually it's the property managers who really should be focusing on leasing, and not chasing former renters.
Coming out of the national property management company is now called American Management Services. Pinnacle is another name it goes by. I started my career there when, I won't bore you with the details. Well, that's for another time. But
I think they're Cushman Wakefield now.
Yes,
I think they were acquired. Yes,
correct. So my history is that I worked for 16 years for the original founder of that company, which was called Goodman Management.
No kidding. That makes sense. They're based in Seattle. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's right. So been there, done that. But what I find is that there's also another side of, I'm focusing, I don't know why I'm zeroing in on this, on the payroll aspect for landlords, right? Because how working or coming from a national property management company, it's the on-site people, right? They're leasing assistants that are dealing with all this paperwork and collection of these deposits and things like that. But on the other side, there's the accounting department at the property management company. Now, the property management, we're just talking shop. Told you, Casey.
Hey.
Okay. So
wild card.
Not only, so the property management companies like American Management Services, which is now Cushman Wakefield, they don't own the properties. Okay. They are third party. So your audience, because of the fact that it's payroll savings for the accounting departments of these property management companies, who are the ones cutting all these checks and doing all this shit, that's another market for you, right? And that if I were you, you probably are already doing this. Rather than reach out to landlords, I'd be also, as I'm sure you are, reaching out to the property management companies who then introduce that to their landlords, and you pitch it to them as, hey, look, do you want to win more business? You're a third-party fee-based property management company. If you guys have a board spot open, I'm available. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But, you know what I mean? There's just, to me, there's so many.
Julie, yeah, to hear you say that is such great validation, because this kind of deposit return product is fairly new for us. You know, we only released it a few months ago. Yeah. And it's actually, like, all of our product suite is available as standalone. And there's been, so we do everything kind of financially related to move in and move out. So because of this open banking technology we have, for example, which is how we screen people. Sometimes we look at credit, but usually we're just looking at your bank account. So with open banking, it allows you to, sign in with your same username and password for your mobile banking via this secure iframe. If anybody's ever used PayPal or Venmo, you've probably done this already. It's the new norm. But the data you get from a renter, a prospective renter, by looking at the last 2 years of their bank accounts, lets you kind of more holistically screen them, right? I think a lot of people believe that the credit score can be misleading. It doesn't tell the whole story. If you walked away from a mortgage during the financial crisis in 08, 09, that could still reflect on your credit score, but you could be crushing it. And the bank account shows your income. It shows your expenses. It basically shows us if you could afford the deposit or to pay us back if you needed to. So that, because of that data and the fact that we're sharing with our partners how we're screening the renters, and they love the fact that we don't rely on credit score, by the way, because they have the same mentality. They try to find ways to accept people. They said, hey, can we look at that data before we even approve the renter? So we actually have some big partners that are using, this is more R&D at the moment, but they're using a different flow where the prospective renter is going through the Obligo experience before they're approved to move in, which allows the landlord or the property manager to see this new data sets to more holistically evaluate if they want to rent to that person or not. So screening because of this is something that we just naturally do for ourselves, and our partners, they've got interest in using it as well. And then the other, the product, like I said, the returning deposits at move out, and the collections piece we talked about earlier, which we haven't launched yet, but is in our product roadmap, is essentially just a collection robot that we already use for ourselves that's going to let owners, for those amounts beyond the deposit, squeeze their lemon as much as they can themselves before they outsource to a professional third-party collection agency that is going to take a big split. Usually they're going to take about 40% of the recovered funds. So yeah, anything, related to financial move-in or financial move-out, that's our vision as a company. And, we've got a lot of work to do. We've got a lot of ideas, and we're hiring a lot to try to meet them, but that's just how it works when you're a young company, and we gotta love it.
Guys, have you ever heard of Home Partners of America?
Home Partners of America, I think American Homes for Rent, or
American Homes for Rent is like Invitation Homes, right? They're
correct. Yeah.
Monster. So Home Partners of America, unless Warren Buffett just sold it, it's a Berkshire product, or Warren Buffett started it, or whatever. It is a lease option. So if somebody wants to rent before they own, okay, it is, check it out. Just go Google, search it up, as my kids say, Home Partners of America. It is.
I know who they are.
Lease to own. So if I wanted to buy a house, or I'm moving to town, let's say I wanted to test out an area because I'm moving down to wherever for a job, or let's say my credit isn't quite good enough yet to qualify for a mortgage, I might go to Home Partners. They're going to buy the house that I, want to live in, and I'm going to lease it from them with the option to buy it. There's all kinds of deposit scenarios, I'm sure, involved in that.
Yeah. Yeah. I do know who they are. And you're right. It makes total sense, because the fact that they are renting to own, that actually, in my mind, makes them even more responsible. And more responsible allows us to drop the price even further. But that's a really good point. And it's great to see all these, different models popping up. Just the innovation in our country is just really amazing. Every time I get on a call, I learn something new, and you're teaching me a lot today too, Julie.
So tell us again about the hold time, and we'll take another maybe 10 minutes or so. But what's the, if somebody stays in a lease for, a year, 2 years, whatever, how does the hold time thing work on that with the billing authorization?
Yeah, I mean, the billing authorization is, it goes on forever until, the renter moves out. That bank account might not be there anymore.
Is the billing
if the bank
timeline outlined in the lease? Like, I'm a tenant and I agree to have my billing authorization open for 12 months or for the duration of however long this lease is valid.
Correct. For the duration of however long that lease is valid is as long as it stays open. We do, if a renter is there for a very long period of time, right, which, maybe 3, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, which, we're not even old enough as a company yet, but we start to lower their fees through time, just because we've already collected enough revenue. But the way we, kind of look at our pricing, this is a credit product. So it's kind of like, it's a credit line just for your deposit. So it's kind of like a premium credit card. If you have that Amex or whatever Black Platinum card, you're paying a $400 annual membership fee just to have that card. And that's how we view our product. You have a premium credit line just for your deposit. If you actually take the cash that you did not have to pay at move-in and stick it in savings or pay off your high interest debt, you're essentially breaking even or making money based on what our fees are, which are very low.
So the fees are to the tenant? Is the tenant?
The renter pays the fees, but the landlord, honestly, they have the option to pay it. We don't recommend that they do, because the renters pay it. What we typically see is 7 out of 10 renters that move in an Obligo-enabled property choose this option over paying the traditional deposit. So there isn't, the fee is not a blocker by any means. It's very reasonable. And the reason that it's so much less than what you would pay from a bond product is because we actually are transparent. The renter knows the deal. They're providing a payment method up front just in case they do something wrong. So we do collect back most of the time, which means our losses are very low. What you see with bond products is they collect back, honestly, less than 20% of the time, often less than 10% of the time, which means it's just pooled money at the end of the day. And you have to charge more. So there's enough money in the pool. So when the landlord goes to that pool to get the money is there.
What are the fees?
Yeah. So the fees, they can vary by portfolio. Again, we do it in a very smart way. We know what we're getting into. We ask the questions to the landlord so we can anticipate what the charge volume will be. But typically it's about $10 a month, but it is relative to the size, right? So a $3,000 credit line for a $3,000 deposit alternative is going to be more expensive than a $1,000 credit line for a $1,000 deposit requirements.
Interesting. If I was a landlord, did you say that you have a screening? How tenants are screened as part of the move-in process?
Yeah.
Is that a line of your business? Did you say?
Well, yeah. I mean, we're screening for ourselves, right? So after the renter goes through the normal
product, like you don't have a.
We do.
For this.
Yeah, we do. We do have an option to share our screening data with the bank account, the open banking, with the owner or operator before they approve the renter. It's a slightly different flow, but it just gives that owner or operator a more holistic set of data points on the actual cash flow of the renter. We can make predictions like, hey, based on their income and expenses, they can afford this for rents. This would be too high. This would be too low. And here's the prediction of what their chance of default will be. You can also see, provided that they paid their previous rent with that bank account, you can see what day of the month they paid their rents over the last 24 months.
What's interesting is that type of review, I could see in some ways might replace the old school traditional type of tenant screening, except for the employment verification and the I don't know if they're checking for past evictions, but the fact that you just said you can see what day of the month they pay their rent, that's interesting to me. What's your attach rate? Because they have the option to go traditional or Obligo. What's your attach rate?
Yeah, our attach rate, our conversion rate is 70%. So 70% of renters will go through this to avoid paying their cash deposit.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, another thing, by the way, we use Plaid. That's our partner for the open banking. They're probably the biggest known brand in the open banking space. They were the first, they were the forefront. They are now tapping into the, HR companies, the payroll companies. So you can do employment verification through it as well. And if you think about it, a lot of property managers, when they're evaluating a prospect, often they're calling the previous landlords to confirm that they paid their rent on time every month. So it kind of eliminates that step in the leasing process again. Now, if the renter is uncomfortable connecting their bank account, then sure, they can just upload their last 24 bank statements if they prefer. But and by the way, I've heard a lot of stories, especially during the pandemic, of fraudulent paperwork. People, providing, bank statements that have been altered in order to qualify for apartments, renters providing fake IDs. We also do ID verification as part of our screening. So we can check if an ID is real or fake in split seconds.
If I was a landlord using this service, I would probably offer an incentive because I don't know why, Casey, I'm so narrowing in on the landlord, for these larger landlords, the payroll.
Yeah.
And I would incentivize the renters, like you don't have to pay your screening fees, or you don't, something, or even, get, some sort of little concession off your first month's rent, something to incentivize them, because the payroll savings is so big in the trickle down effect of related to the whole thing. It's very interesting. Another thing, I don't know why, now I'm getting excited about this. Could there be an application for this with Airbnb?
There certainly could. Airbnb definitely has issues with deposits. Sometimes though, their rental cycle is so short that they can use the traditional pre-authorization on a credit card or a bank account. But for the longer term ones that are like over 2 weeks, there's certainly potential that this could add some real value to their process as well.
So is just because I have a lot of fun thinking about this kind of stuff. It's kind of my hobby. I'm a total prop tech type nerd. Okay. I admit it, guys, you caught me.
You're in good company. Don't worry.
Yeah, that's right. What's the defining line threshold of this will work related to whatever, olive branches Obligo wants to go down? Is it whether somebody might be interested in using this service? Like we just said, well, Airbnb doesn't really have necessarily maybe the need because they can go with the pre-authorization thing. Is there, are there any benchmarks? Like, do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, it's really a financial tool at the end of the day, right? So we can provide the experience, but we also have a very robust API. So we have companies that say, hey, listen, we just need your tech. Do you have an API? To give you an example, in the deposit alternative world, for the third-party managers, right, who are, they have set revenue from, the properties they manage, and they're always looking for ways to make ancillary revenue. A lot of them that even predating our company, they did their own self-insurance models. So they run their own deposit-free programs and assume all the risk because they want to make extra revenue, but they don't really have any tech around it, right? So they'll see our tech and they'll say, hey, can I just lease your tech? I'll take the risk. So we do that as well, by the way. And this actually applies to the big companies, the top 50s in the multifamily space, because they are also experts on risk. That is their business. They are publicly traded REITs. They buy and sell properties, and they don't need us to tell them how to take risk. But they are not traditionally tech companies. They are not developing custom software. So they just see our tech, and I've had a lot of calls, and I didn't even know what their wish lists were. And going through the demo, we're checking boxes that have been on their long-term wish list, and we packaged it all in one place. So we do that too. We say, okay, here's the software. We'll tell you what you should do as far as qualification and pricing if you want to, make a certain margin or break even, but you have the liberty to deviate if you want to take that, additional risk yourself. So yeah, we're flexible. We see all the different possibilities for this application, and we explore them all, and we're hiring a bunch of people to help us, explore everything that we possibly can.
So what's the expansion and growth plans for Obligo? Eventual going, raising more funds, getting more national than like some sort of IPO or something? What's the long-term vision?
Yeah, we're VC funded. We've got very good investors behind us that not only give us capital, but, support us and have connections in the industry. We've got financially very healthy. We've got a long runway. We're probably going to, do a round pretty soon. But yeah, we're just looking to support this growth. We want to, hire industry experts. If there are any listening in on this call and you're a prop tech nerd and you think this is interesting and you've got experience in the industry, we'd love to talk to you. You can look me up on LinkedIn or through the podcast. But yeah, we've got big dreams for the company. Maybe years down the line, this is something that's certainly applicable, not only in the United States, but in any country that has rentals and takes deposits and deals with, these same type of burdens that landlords do with taking traditional deposits here in this country.
Yeah, interesting. My mind is racing. So is there any downside or any hiccups or any this could be happening? There's risk in all businesses for either tenants or landlords, right? Because there's always that. What are there any buyer beware type?
It's interesting. I think the pandemic was a good stress test for us.
Yeah.
So what was interesting is some of the companies doing the surety bond model shut down during the pandemic, which just shows you, how exposed those type of models are to market fluctuations. We did very well. We were obviously worried. We didn't know what was going to happen, I think, like most of us. So we did kind of tighten our requirement a bit just to kind of play it safe. But we saw very small increase in write-offs that we monitor. So we actually came through the pandemic with flying colors. We were there the whole time to serve our partners. We didn't have to shut off. We didn't have to change our terms and conditions or, anything like that. We didn't have to add restrictions. We actually helped in a way where something else we do, Julie, by the way, is we can return the deposit you've taken mid-lease or at least renewal. So when people's income went down and they were renters, we work with their landlords to return the deposit that they were holding so that they could have access to their cash and keep up with their rent or buy expenses or whatever it was. And, I think we all saw that a number of states actually mandated that option. New York, New Jersey are two of them that we know very well that said, hey, listen, if your renter can prove financial hardship because of the pandemic, you have to return their deposits, but the renter has to set up a repayment plan with you immediately over 12 months. So we plugged that gap, for those landlords in New York and New Jersey. So yeah, it's great to have that flexibility, but yeah, we thought that was a real stress test. And
there's an interest
after we got through it
with your open banking, being able to verify whether they're actually having a hardship or not based on using the activity of their stuff. Oh, very interesting. This is all very interesting to me. I could go on and on like this forever. Huh. Yeah. Now I'm like, my mind is going blank because I'm like, this is very cool. You guys are going to do really well with this. What's to prevent anyone else from doing this, like Zillow?
Yeah. So certainly companies can try to copy this model, and I think they will. We've got certainly a head start. Yeah, the thing about it is that, I keep mentioning the bond companies because they've been around for 25 years. And there's probably 15 or 20 companies. I see new bond products being launched almost on a weekly basis, to be honest with you. To launch a bond product is very simple. You find a reinsurer, you build a website, you're up and running in 1 or 2 months. Julie, if me and you wanted to quit our day jobs and start a bond company, we could certainly be up and running within 1 or 2 months. The point is that the way we did it took a lot of heavy lifting. It took really about a year and a half of R&D before we could even launch the product. We were going into uncharted territory, creating a new financial model that had never been considered before. We had to spend a lot of money on legal because, we all know how legislation works. Technology is always ahead of legislation. So we had to make sure we were squeaky clean. We had to go to the capital markets and find creditors that would backstop us. So it took a lot of heavy lifting. The amount of investment on the technology side has been immense.
You have a couple years head start, first adopter, first out the gate type of thing. How does that work with, I don't know much about open banking, right? I'm just sort of a mouse head here. All the different banks, or do you have to have a special arrangement? What bank just says, sure, here, plug on in and, go ahead and pull data for 2 years. That seems very footloose and fancy free. So how does that work with all the,
Yeah, and open banking, it's very much a buzzword, right? I think most people have heard the term open banking. Most people, I think this is changing, but don't really know how to describe what it is. And really, open banking kind of spawned from the last financial crisis. When they passed Dodd-Frank, it wasn't necessarily written in there in black and white, but there was clauses in there that encouraged the banks, basically told them, hey, banks, we can't have this nonsense again. You guys need to modernize. You need to make it easier for your customers to more securely share their financial data so they can qualify for things like loans and mortgages and credit lines, which is what happened in the financial crisis, right? They were selling houses to people that would never have been able to pay those mortgage payments based on crazy evaluations. If they had access to their bank account data in real time via an API and they were acting responsibly, there's a good chance that wouldn't have happened. So Plaid was really, at the forefront. Plaid knew that the banks aren't necessarily tech companies. So they went out there and they created a network that allowed the banks to easily integrate with Plaid's network, which means when you go through a Plaid iframe in our workflow or any company that works with Plaid, all the banks are going to be there. I think 95% of the banks and credit unions in the country are on there. And by the way, whenever I give like a
Is
demo,
Plaid a publicly traded company?
Plaid is not publicly traded, but if you Google them, you're going to see that Visa, and my sister works for Visa, by the way, tried to acquire them for like, I think $4 billion or something like that. And then the government said, antitrust, you can't do this. MasterCard has bought an open banking company. They didn't run into that problem, but yeah, Plaid is still independent. They are heavily valued, as I just said. Everybody sees the future of this technology. It's going to become the norm. The tricky part and the things that are coming up now is this: you have to be responsible with this, because sometimes if you're not being transparent with the renter as to what you're looking at when they connect their bank accounts, then they don't really know what's happening. So you need to let them know what you're checking, why you're connecting to their bank account, why it's to their benefit. We give renters the option, if their bank is not on there, for example, they can verify their bank account with micro deposits the old school way. Doesn't let us screen them though. So if they go that route, then we're going to do a traditional credit check. But we don't want to prevent anybody whose bank might not be on the platform from being able to use the service. Yeah. Right.
That's probably one of the expansion roadblocks or challenges, right? Is if the bank's not on the platform.
It's only 5%, and I love testing it because I'll do a demo with maybe a regional operator or manager, and I'll say, hey, do you have a local small bank that you guys see from your renters? And then we check right there live to see if it's on the platform. And honestly, most of the time it is. Cool. Chime is also on there, which if you guys are familiar with Chime and Green Dot, these are kind of like the neo banks that serve people who traditionally wouldn't have a bank account. It gives them the option to easily register a bank account.
So much. This has been surprisingly awesome. Not surprisingly, but super awesome today, guys. I don't know. I'm enjoying this myself. Like I said, I could go on forever, but I know Joe wants to get out on his mountain bike and go and lift some weights. So, geez, I could talk to you guys forever. Maybe we'll have you guys come back again. Love to connect with you, Casey. You guys shoot me an email after this and say, hey, hook me up to your connection over at Invitation Homes, and I'll do that. And we can even send them this podcast they can watch it as well. And
Julie, great, fantastic questions, by the way. It's been a great conversation, and yeah, let's definitely, we'd love to come back. We'd love to update you on what we're doing in 6 months or 12 months time.
Yeah, absolutely. When you guys are ready and you think you've got, unless we continue to talk, intermittently after this, just hit us up whenever you think you've got an announcement you want to make. And that, is cool. That would be fun. I would appreciate that.
All right. Yeah. Keegan's in charge of our announcements. So we'll make sure to keep you in the loop.
Great. Sounds great. Anybody else have anything else to add? Casey and I just been chatting away here, but this has been really fun today. I love finding these new things. Have you ever heard, by side note here, have you ever heard of Earnest? We did a podcast with Earnest. They are an alternative to doing wire transfers in real estate, right? So there's a fraud, right? That's happening there. Different than what you guys are doing, but again, it'd be fun for you just to know they exist and, kind of same space, but different space, I guess I would say. Just want you to know about them, I guess, if you haven't heard of those guys.
I'll check them out.
Have you heard of Hemlane as a property manager? Hemlane.
Don't know Hemlane.
But they might be not the right audience for you, I guess, because they're working with small landlords, but maybe later we can send Joe, can you send Casey our podcast we did with Dana?
Sure.
That'd be cool. Just so you know and Ernest. Actually, why don't you send both over to him? I love sharing. My favorite thing, guys, if you guys haven't figured this out, I love the whole networking. I love kind of just being a person that people come to. Like I said, just ask Julie. I've been around a long time, and I love connecting the dots for people. And just, it benefits us all with all these cool tools coming out here.
I've certainly learned a lot from you on this call, and you just dropped some companies I'm going to check out too. So it's been a real pleasure chewing the fat with you, Julie.
think of any more, I'll let you know. But it's been fantastic, guys. We'll just wrap it up from here. You guys, if you want to get notified of these awesome podcasts, right? I mean, unfortunately, as Joe wants to kill me, is that our content, I am picky, and I'm not supposed to be picky when you're building like a YouTube channel and stuff like that. But I don't like just anybody. I don't want to talk to just anybody. I want to bring you guys quality stuff. So when we put out a new podcast and the podcast that we've done in the past, they're high quality like this one. So go, how do they say it? And you're the British guy, smash that like button or subscribe or whatever. So you guys get notified of our podcast, and jump on our YouTube channel, go click videos. And there's hundreds of these with some badass deep dive content. And we're going to start a series here because I get bored of talking to the same old types of people all the time. And Joe's pounding me about content, and it's going to be called Just Ask Julie. And we're going to book 30-minute segments where whoever wants to book on our podcast calendar can come ask me questions for 30 minutes, and I'll share my knowledge and my network. Who am I? I'm really a nobody. I'm just the average Joe that has a huge network and been around a long time. So it's fun for me, and I guarantee that you'll get some benefit out of it. I'm going to be posting that on the Seattle Investors Club website soon. And we will go from there. See if you guys want to just chat, right? Get us some more content. Let's have some. Oh, Casey, you should join us every Thursday. You guys know this if you've been listening to our podcast, Pacific time, 11:30 to 12:30, every single Thursday. We have kind of like for lack of a better word, and maybe I'm not supposed to use this because there is something called collective genius out there. So credit to you guys. But we have a mastermind, just a roundtable open talk where we introduce these types of resources and make these types of networking connections, drop deals, off-market deals. We have brokers, wholesalers, investors, property managers. We have some local property managers. If you ever said, hey, I'm going to be around on a Thursday, why don't we plan like a Thursday, a couple weeks from now, because I'm headed to Sun River on vacation this week. So maybe in September, maybe late in September, say, hey, we're going to show up on this Thursday, Julie. It's from 11:30 to 12:30. Give me like a week's notice, Casey. And I will invite a bunch of property managers, or try and get some property managers. I'll invite Hemlane. I'll invite some of the local bigger property managers, not the Goodman, not the American Management Services people necessarily. That's a whole separate, different pond, right, for us to talk about. But love it. Just help you get the word out with some of our mid-range property managers or landlords that own hundreds of units. We know some of those, and I'll invite them to the Thursday thing, and you guys show up, and we'll do a little intro. How's that sound?
We would love to join, and we didn't even talk about this, but Seattle passed some pretty strict deposit laws.
Yes.
Last year, and they might be feeling that pain, so it might be very relevant for them.
We're feeling that pain for sure, no doubt, and it'd be a great conversation to introduce you as much as I can to our crowd. Actually, I can probably get you guys an opportunity for a sponsorship at with our friends Tarl and Grace that run the Pacific Northwest Big Badass Real Estate Expo that happens. I think it's happening in February or March this year. So once we get this podcast done, I will send it over to them, and I guarantee you they'll probably reach out to you, invite you guys out here to Seattle for the biggest event in the Pacific Northwest for investors and landlords and, some big players. It'd be fun for you to come out, and then we can say,
I love Seattle. I would love to come out there, and we want our team traveling again now that, restrictions are lifted. So we definitely look at sponsoring too. So yeah, please do.
Cool.
You're right, Julie. You're a wealth of industry knowledge. So I appreciate all these connections you're making.
Awesome stuff. Well, make sure to email me after this because, I'm also the mom of twin girls, and that is a lot. That is my number.
Teenagers now, if I was listening correctly. Yeah.
That's all hell breaks loose on that front. So, all right, guys, we'll wrap it up here today. Joe, how do people find the details of today's podcast?
Heck yeah, guys. That was awesome. The podcast and show notes and links and everything that we mentioned today can be found at seattleiinvestorsclub.com/148 or down below if you're watching this on YouTube in the comments and notes section down there. So like Julie said, we'd love a like and subscribe if you liked this. And thanks for listening and watching.
Yeah. And for those of you that might be listening for the first time, all you need to do to join, everybody is welcome to join our Thursday mastermind. It's super cool. We do have people that come from other states, California, Florida, around the country too. And if you are somebody and you're out there and you have a prop tech company or you have any type of information that you think would be great to share with a group, hit me up ahead of time at julie@seattleinvestorsclub.com. Say, hey, I want to come to one of your Thursday open masterminds, and give me advance notice so I can invite some people that might be interested in whatever the topic is you want to cover. And how you guys get access to this free weekly Pacific time, 11:30 to 12:30 meetup is you just go to meetup.com, search for Seattle Investors Club, and you'll get to register and have the link right there. And the beautiful part is that link does not change. So you can take it and copy it and paste it into your calendar if you want, for every Thursday, 11:30 to 12:30, as a reminder to show up, right? We record all those meetings. And if you're a member, if you're a paid member of Seattle Investors Club, you get access to listen to all those paid recordings of all our just badass. It's amazing to me. I've been doing this for years. You'd think I'd be bored as hell. Oh my God, I got to do it again. But I swear each week it is amazing what happens when you get a group of people together. I like to call it like that, collective genius. So let's all do it. And I'll see you guys there. Looking forward to see you. All right. Over and out.
Thanks for listening to the Seattle Investors Club podcast. If you have questions that you'd like to have answered on the show, shoot us an email at info@seattleinvestorsclub.com. Now go out, take that action, and build that real estate business. Thanks for listening.